Good afternoon, it is audible? Okay, fine. Entire road, one side they have pandal, then they are hawkers. Fine, there is hardly any space for the vehicle to move. आप उनको कुछ कह भी नहीं सकते क्योंकि रिलीजियस वो है. 2 दिन पहले गणेश चतुर्थी मना रहे थे, फिर 4 दिन पहले उसके कुछ और मना रहे थे, कुछ और था. What was that? शिवरात्रि. Then they will celebrate Navratri, then they will celebrate Dashara, then they will celebrate Diwali. Here, something else. Fine. Chalo, what were we talking about? This is what they are. They will be. What were we? So what will we see? Heading to nahi kuch aur.
Sir, we just talked about first and second years recommendation. The first point already.
Seven. That is what. वो है ना topic. Institutional reforms, ministry, right, and minister-civil servant relationship. So most of the public service values नहीं, अब हम उसमें institutional reforms पढ़ रहे हैं पूजा. So minister-civil servant relationship जो है पहला orientation of reform, right? We were talking about oath of secrecy क्यों होता है, fine? Did you understand क्यों होता है? So that is the idea, right? Yes, minister-civil servant. So how the relationship should develop? For example, Sardar Patel's statement. He was of the view that free and fair and frank advice must be given by civil servants to the ministers, right? How will they do it? If they are not protected, they cannot do it. So civil services law will give them the protection which they need. If the political interference on the day-to-day service condition is reduced, then probably autonomy will increase. We already have protection in the constitution.
As privilege, I not value anything, but privilege to constitution.
That is why we want to make the law. No, if we make the law, that's enough. So, क्या legislature का role होगा? What is wrong? There has to be democratic accountability. No, without that, how can you make civil services professional?
I'm just saying that law should be through constitution.
Even then, executive will control the law. वो constitution में भी होगा तो क्या हो जाएगा? CAG, election commission, right? Various commissions are there, and national commission for SC, ST, सब तो constitutional bodies हैं. Government interference नहीं है वहाँ पे. चलिए. Tribunals. Constitutional amendment eventually can happen when we see the statutory law is working well. तब तो फायदा है. You directly make a constitutional amendment, you give more power to the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is still not developed. But उसका culture reform नहीं हुआ है. It will again misuse the power. So we don't want politics administration conflict also. ये भी तो नहीं चाहिए. Right? So what can be done? We have talked about many things. Civil services law से क्या फायदा होगा?
So more formalized.
Okay, तुषार.
More formalized procedures for them and
universalization. Right? So right now we have classifications, we have isolated laws in various departments, right? Various sectors. तो उन सबको integrate करेंगे. फिर एक, you know, at parity it will come. Group B, C, D, A जो भी हैं सब एक parity पे आएंगे. Then condition सब तो लिखा था हमने भी. लिखा हुआ है. अच्छा तुमने क्यों नहीं लिखा? Protection है, correct पूजा, right? Homogeneity आएगी, ठीक है? Clarity will be there in terms of the basis. कैट सैट इनकी यूटिलिटी बढ़ जाएगी. क्यों? क्योंकि लॉ बन जाएगा. जुडिशरी के ऊपर बर्डन कम हो जाएगा. सी राइट. सो रिफॉर्म जो है वो वेरिड प्रोसेसेस से क्रिएट किया जा सकता है. अल्टीमेट एम्बिशन क्या है? दैट डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम एंड द ब्यूरोक्रेटिक सिस्टम दे शुड वर्क इन कोलैबोरेशन. फाइन. सो यू राइट फ्यू लाइंस, देन वी विल टेक द नेक्स्ट पॉइंट. सेकंड आरसी का कुछ रिकमेंडेशन हम लिखते हैं. वी हैव रिटन द नेम्स ऑफ लॉट ऑफ कमिटीज. यू रिमेंबर द नेम्स? चलो ग्लोबल है. Apple by committee. Okay, right. Okay. There is, okay. All we are talking about is second RC only, right? There is a need for code of ethics for both ministers and civil servants. And civil servants. Code of ethics for both ministers and civil servants. Okay. Already, there are ethics committees in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. But they are not effective. as they do not have enough teeth. As they do not have enough teeth. They can only suggest, right? Nothing more. Under the next point or next line, under the transaction of business rules 1961. Transaction of business rules 1961. 61 1961 चाइना वॉर से पहले 1961 वॉर 62 की 1961 there is code of conduct for ministers. Code of conduct for ministers. Though it is hardly followed in the absence of any enforcing authority. In the absence of any enforcing authority, right? Law hai, but enforce kaun karega? Clarity nahi hai. Who will enforce it? So they have code of conduct, right, which they have to follow, but there is no clarity who is going to enforce this code of conduct. So prime minister kar sakta hai, right? Generally, ministers ke liye speaker kyun karega? Speaker is for parliamentarians, so ministers are basically executive. Fine, they may be part of the parliament. So when they are acting as an MP, then it can be enforced. When they are acting as a minister, then it cannot be enforced, right? So, ये एक drawback है, right? Then लिखिए. Okay, in the absence of code of ethics, there is a lack of moral guidance. Guidance for both ministers as well as civil servants. Okay. Agencies like Lokpal or CBC can only become active when the action amounts to illegality. When the action amounts to, जब कोई illegal act हो, when the action amounts to illegality, and so there is no moral persuasion through any institution. The judicial review is in itself. Is more of the last resort. For example, the invasion of privacy by intelligence agencies is quite usual. The invasion of privacy by intelligence agencies is quite usual, and unless it was brought under Article 21, the executive did not find it morally compelling not to encroach privacy. In the bracket you will write not to encroach privacy. In the bracket you write national security versus individual freedom. And to mind you, right, ये मत लिखना. National security versus individual freedom, right? And to remind you, national security is not greater than individual freedom. Understand? बिल्कुल नहीं. In fact, national security is for individual freedom. You understand? But individual freedom को trample करके नहीं. ऐसा नहीं. In evaluation, we cannot put one in hierarchy over the other. We are living in a political ideological system. Democracy का fundamental principle क्या है? Constitutional democracy है हम. Fine. Discretionary democracy थोड़ा ना कि आज democracy है कल नहीं है पाकिस्तान की तरह. तो हमारा fundamental that is a fundamental basis of this democracy, that is the individual freedom, fundamental right. तो national security का interpretation कौन करेगा? Executive थोड़ा ना करेगी. ये तो लिखा हमने. फिर से पढ़ो जो लिखा है. They were not morally inclined to stop what they were doing, invading the privacy, right? Only when the judiciary intervened, then they stopped it. See? So neither the bureaucracy nor the civil minister or the executive were following the code of ethics. That's the problem. That even if we suggest code of ethics, right, who is going to morally influence that or enforce it? Nobody. तो इससे बेटर है कोडिफिकेशन हो जाए उसका, नहीं? Into a law, right? देखिए, it is better if these, देखिए, it is better if code of ethics gets codified into a law or a statute or a provision rather than voluntary guidelines. Rather than voluntary guidelines. Voluntary guidelines. Okay. Next, look here. Numerous examples are there, but we'll use them next, right? The ministers must not give orders or directions verbally. The ministers must not give orders or directions verbally. And everything must be documented in the form of MOM, minutes of the meeting. Minutes of the meeting. It's like keeping the record, the pointers of what has happened. Minutes of the meeting. Right. Next. Okay. As far as policy failures or strategic decision-making failures are concerned. Policy failures or strategic decision-making failures are concerned. The political head or the minister must be. The political head or the minister must be held accountable. For administrative tasks, it can be the civil servant. It can be civil servants. Civil servants. Fine. Then one more suggestion. Okay. The Prime Minister must not hold any portfolio. As it would create unnecessary pressure over junior ministers and civil servants. Pressure over junior ministers and civil servants. And moreover, the civil servants would not be able to work freely under Prime Minister. Okay. तो बोले भाई पीएम अगर पोर्टफोलियो, he should not be part of council of minister. He is obviously head of council of minister, but he should not hold a ministerial portfolio. If he does it, then civil servants cannot work independently. Obviously, this prime minister is the minister. तो कैसे काम करेंगे? Junior ministers cannot make independent decisions. So it says this will obviously create a conflict between civil services and the council of ministers. If not conflict, at least lack of transparency, lack of fairness. कोई भी मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ पर्सनल, राइट, जनरली प्राइम मिनिस्टर के पास होता है, या फॉरेन रिलेशंस पीएम के पास होता है. तो बहुत सारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स दे वांट कि दे शुड हैव द कंट्रोल ओवर सर्टेन. अब जैसे कोल मिनिस्ट्री, टेलीकॉम, राइट, और पर्सनल, ये सब मनमोहन सिंह के अंडर में था, तभी भी करप्शन हो गया, राइट. So when the corruption took place, he was the prime minister, he was also the minister for the coal. So second RC is saying that if the prime minister holds a ministerial portfolio or he looks after a department or a ministry, then unnecessarily he creates a pressure on the civil services, because they cannot interact with PM the way they can interact with other ministers. Fine, it will waste time of the PM. PM के पास और बहुत सारे काम हैं. How can PM independently evaluate policies if he frequently keeps visiting the parliament? How will he perform his task? तो RC ये भी बोलता है भाई ministers और PM बहुत frequently parliament में नहीं होने चाहिए. They should be working in the ministries. Otherwise, what is the utility of the political head, right? Cases of corruption and wherever, it has very clearly said the accountability should be of the highest administrator and the minister. The minister cannot deny its accountability in cases of corruption. So no corruption can happen if minister was not aware of it. It is impossible. Fine. So now ये कुछ है, बाकी ठीक है, बहुत सारा तो you cannot write. Fine. Then second आइए, what is second next लिखो. What is the next institutional reform? Pehla is minister, civil servant, the reforms in ministry. What is the next reform? नहीं और कोई रिफॉर्म? इंस्टीट्यूशनल सिस्टम्स में क्या चेंज चाहिए? जैसे पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम में रिफॉर्म चाहिए, ठीक है, वो लिखा हमने. इलेक्टोरल में चाहिए तो पहले लिखा, ठीक है. अभी व्हाट वी आर टॉकिंग, वी आर डायरेक्टली टॉकिंग अबाउट पॉलिसी फॉर्मुलेशन एंड इंप्लीमेंटेशन पार्ट. Earlier we were talking more about broader part, right? Now what? Civil services law we have written, Pooja, right? Where should we strengthen anti-corruption agencies? लिख लो फिर क्या? But we should reform the political systems and the civil services relation. ये major institutional reform है क्योंकि ये highest level पे है. Then next क्या होना चाहिए? Right? Strengthen the anti-corruption agencies or mechanisms. That is a major reform. Main training is capacity building, correct? We'll come to that, Pooja, don't worry. Anti-corruption mechanisms, right? Strengthening anti-corruption mechanisms. Up here what we'll talk about? We'll talk about the various agencies which are there, right? How we can do this now? So within this, we can bring reforms or we can use better the existing system. What is the existing system comprising of? Let's say. How does it look like? Let's say now we have is for the union, right? Then CVC. Fine. Then CVC is not, ED is parallel to CVC. It is for specific type of mostly economic offenses, money laundering type. Right? This is for basically corruption. That's a bigger body, right? But yes, they have parallel standing. But ultimately, CVC is the highest body for anti-corruption under Lokpal. Now Lokpal. तो पहले तो CVC था, अब Lokpal है. Lokpal, what type of body it is? This is the recommendation you should give. Make Lokpal constitutional. It's a statutory body. Right? This is statutory body. This is ED क्या है? Executive body. It's an executive body. Ministry of Finance के साथ काम करता है. Fine. Made by law of parliament, made by law of parliament, made under the departmental law. Right? It's like a department of the finance, Ministry of Finance. Fine. Then independent है लेकिन ministerial control है, right? Independent है लेकिन ministerial control है. CBI is what kind of body? इसको आप स्टैट्यूटरी नहीं बोल सकते, लेकिन इसको आप बोल सकते हैं ऑटोनॉमस। फाइन, सीबीआई। और क्या है? देन लेट अस से इनके नीचे आ जाती हैं, या इसको नीचे बनाओ भी। एंटी करप्शन ब्यूरो। ऑटोनॉमस, ये कैसी बॉडीज हैं, राइट? ये भी ऑटोनॉमस बॉडीज हैं, बट दे मे कम अंडर गवर्नमेंट्स, डायरेक्टली अंडर द गवर्नमेंट्स, राइट? तो ये सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट में आएगा जो दिल्ली में है, और जनरली अगर होगा तो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के अंदर, राइट? फंक्शंस अंडर गवर्नमेंट। Now CBI is supposed to be under a specific law, right? Or CBI is supposed to be formed out of an existing law. What is that existing law? It was SPE, Special Police Establishment Act 1941, or later on Delhi Special Police Establishment Act 1946. Then what CBC controls? Let's say you go to various ministries or departments, right? So in various ministries and departments, now there are bodies which are called as the departmental vigilance commissions, or let's say departmental vigilance cells. So every department has vigilance branches, or it has vigilance cells which overall report to CBC. Fine. So these are departmental level, right? Same way, right? It's not directly under its control, but see, still, this is the structure that now anti-corruption bureaus are there. They are the highest bodies. Then there will be state vigilance commissions. Now they are not directly under them, fine? They may be working as independent bodies under state, but they are all connected somehow. State vigilance commissions, right? Or state vigilance agencies now. So there can be various agencies of the state, right, working under the State Vigilance Commission. Fine. Then this will go down to something called LRU, Local Intelligence Units. Fine. CVC, CBI, CVC can coordinate with them. CBI can now coordinate with them. And now CBI will also coordinate with this state police. अब स्टेट पुलिस भी आ गया इसी नेटवर्क में, राइट? विच विल बी वर्किंग अंडर ऑब्वियसली दी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट। फाइन। अब यहां पे हाईएस्ट लेवल पे क्या होगा? लोका। अब अल्टीमेटली ये भी इसको रिपोर्ट करेंगे, राइट? इवन स्टेट पुलिस भी इसको रिपोर्ट कर सकती है, राइट? बहुत सारे, फाइन, आस्क हर टू गिव द पीडीएफ। बहुत सारे जो है स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स में वी हैव समथिंग कॉल्ड लोकायुक्ता पुलिस। फाइन। द मोस्ट इफेक्टिव मॉडल इज कर्नाटका। So Karnataka model of Lokayukt police or Lokayukt model is quite effective. ठीक है। अब सीबीआई एंटी करप्शन एजेंसीज ये सब काम करना हो। अब सीबीआई की क्या है? जनरली सीबीआई विल हैव टू aspects or two main branches of study. One, general offenses wing. One, economic offenses wing. And now you can also say serious offenses. Fine, you can now, if you want, you can pick or we can later on try to send you the PDF if it goes. but all are somewhere connected. Fine. ED. Then we have working with the ED can be your DRI, Department of Revenue Intelligence, right? Then you have, correct, but वो internal हो गया, right? They are also working within the departments. Then we talk about serious fraud investigation office, working under Ministry of Finance, right? Ministry of Corporate Affairs, right? And Economic Intelligence Unit working under Ministry of Finance. So obviously, economic intelligence units, fine, serious fraud investigation officers, and likewise now ये सब क्या executive के साथ काम करते हैं सब. So primarily for anti-corruption ये system है, but for in general various offences this is the complex system, right? Local police is also involved, right? They also have their own units which are dealing with special cell dealing with crime. Criminal investigation unit, CIU of the local police, right? That also deals with that, and likewise. So it's obvious that in the anti-corruption area, in the criminal detection area, there are multiple agencies which are working. Fine. अब इसमें क्या है? अब नए-नए कुछ systems add हो रहे हैं, right? ये बना लिया. See, we are also witnessing now the emergence of. अब it is added to all of them. क्या add हो रहा है अभी? अब हमारे पास digital forensics. See, National Institution of Criminal Sciences या National Institution of Criminal Sciences and Forensics ये वर्क करता है Ministry of Home के अंडर में. So you have now forensic agencies. Now they are also part of this. So digital forensics, forensic agencies, right? Cyber crime से deal करने के लिए बहुत सारे उसके लिए, right? Like we have something called the cyber footprint or digital footprint. So they work on these areas, right? अब ये सब क्या? They are all moving towards something what you can call is smart. Yes. So ये भी इसमें ऐड हो गया, ये भी ऐड हो गया, right? CCTNS, Crime and Criminal Tracking Network Systems. NatGrid क्या है? What is NatGrid? See, there are a lot of agencies. Obviously, we cannot write all of them, but we are more concerned about the major relationships that are there. अब सिविल डिफेंस भी है, वो भी कुछ काम करता है. सिविल डिफेंस क्या करता है? मैनेजिंग द इंटरनल लॉ एंड ऑर्डर टेक्निकली, राइट? देन यू हैव सेंट्रल पुलिस एजेंसीज which are dealing with other type of issues, insurgency, Naxalism, and likewise, right? Border security, internal security of the borders. So बहुत सारे systems हैं. वो भी BSF है, basically dealing with smuggling, infiltration, migration, movement. So they are also doing a lot of things. NIA is for basically working in coordination with PMO, NSA, NIA, and on call. NS. So see, that's also a police organization. But I'm talking about NIA as investigative agencies, right? Then National Security Advisor, and then who else is there? They all work in coordination with PMO. Generally, Cabinet Secretary gives them the guidance. RAW, head of RAW, IB, RAW, fine. And likewise, so Joint Intelligence Committee, JIC, is working under Cabinet Secretariat. Correct, R and AW, fine. So obviously ये सब अब उसमें ये सब नहीं आ सकता, right? But try to understand कि भाई ये basic जो है institutional structure है for anti-corruption or for that matter certain kinds of criminal activities, fine, which might be able to control, regulate the administrative corruption. Obviously corruption can be linked to so many things. Now there are narco-terrorism, fine. अब उसको भी control करने के लिए तो भाई CBI is not enough. That's why we need NIA. We need counter-terrorism systems, right? So obviously we need, right, various complicated systems to deal with that, right? But problem क्या है? अब counterfeiting वो भी एक तरह का crime है भी. Counterfeiting की वजह से, right? SPG, Special Protection Group. But let us say, obviously there are various. अब SPGs जो है वो basically किसके लिए काम करते हैं? They are working for the security of the political VIPs, prime ministers, presidents, right? इनके लिए SPGs काम करते हैं. Ex-prime ministers and likewise. So, right? ये एक structure है. Obviously, this cannot be changed overnight. What we can say is it can be strengthened. So how it can be strengthened? अब जैसे CBI है, we can make CBI more autonomous बना दें, या फिर we can give CBI more freedom to act. CBI should have its own force. It doesn't have a force. But CBI cannot create its own force. It will undermine the state's list. Yes. Law and order is the state subject. Fine. So you have to redefine law and order then if you want. Or you always have to separate the law from the order. ये भी तो important है. Investigation from prosecution. A normal law and order from investigation. So you have to bring, correct, right? So we cannot say, well, we'll create the full-fledged CBI police system, right? Then, so what CBI, what can happen to CBI? Now see, CBI should be given the suo motu power of investigation. As of now, the high courts and Supreme Courts and the states and the union government generally approves the inquiry by the CBI, or CVC basically approves the inquiry by the CBI. suo motu कहाँ से पाओगे?
सर अगर स्टेट ने परमिशन दे रखी है
तो फिर suo motu कहाँ से हो गया?
सर वो तो परमिशन तो एक्ट है, बट दे कैन टेक केसेस इन द स्टेट्स व्हिच आर गिवन परमिशन ऑन देयर ओन.
See, no, it doesn't happen like that. No, cases are first referred to CBI by CVC. So suo motu means that CBI will have the autonomy and the decision-making ability that which of the cases it wants to prefer and which it doesn't want to. ये भी तो important है. It's not about just taking up the case. It is also denying the cases which it cannot do. Let's say local police can do it better. Then why CBI will do it? That's unnecessary encroachment into the functioning of the existing system. So many times it is believed that the agency case will be given to CBI, so it will be fair. That is the only basis. It's not necessary CBI is competent enough to deal with all the cases. It has lack of manpower. It has lack of expertise. Most of the officials are on deputation. Write it. When will you write? So CBI या CVC? तो CVC को हमें क्या करना चाहिए? Constitutional status देना चाहिए. लोकपाल को constitutional status देना चाहिए, right? CVC should be removed from the clutches of the executive. Appointments to be CVC are mostly made from the civil servants. IPS or IAS generally enter into CVC, or even IRS, income tax officials, they enter into CVC. नहीं, but फिर state undermine them. SVC is independent of State Vigilance Commission. That's for the state. Yes, obviously. Once there is need for coordination, then the agencies will coordinate. See? That is why we create STF. Yeah, NIA क्यों बनाया गया? इसलिए बनाया गया. STF बोलते हैं Special Task Force. हाँ. CVC has its own big structure. Vigilance, Chief Vigilance Commissioner, Vigilance Commissioners, then Deputy Vigilance Commissioners. There are a lot of people. It's an entire bureaucratic system, right? So obviously they have also powers. They have a lot of branches. But branches क्या मतलब? They also have officers, vigilance officers, right? And they coordinate with various agencies. But CVC जो है फिर भी अभी executive control में है ना. There is another. They have statutory status, right? But the appointment is done by whom? The government. So there is a body, independent body, Prime Minister, and comprises of a kind of, a plural body through which it is appointed. But it was supposed to be like that. But judiciary का involvement है, consultation है, right? But executive का influence ज़्यादा है. Fine, we'll talk about that. Not fine, ज़्यादा details नहीं, जब हम recommend करेंगे, then we'll talk about, right? Now, so CBI autonomy. Cadre, CBI should have its own cadre. CBI should be free from political influence. The reference to CBI as caged parrot, and recent reference to the CBI as the highly trained caged parrot, right? Financial autonomy is not there. They get special funds, no doubt, but they don't have financial autonomy, right? For that, they are dependent on Ministry of Finance. Cadre strength is not there. Fine. So CBI chief कैसे appoint होना चाहिए? Fine. But now see what they did. They have to propose names, right? Out of these names, who will choose? No, this body will choose, right? Who will propose the names? Executive. Executive. Independent bodies, right? But the names will be proposed. See, if somebody is due to retire, that was the issue, no? That Maharashtra cadre IPS was supported by the union government, right, to become the head of the CBI. So if his tenure is just 2-3 months, and then he is appointed as CBI director, so what will happen? But tenure security nahi hai uski. If your service is just 3 months left, then you are appointed. What does it mean? You cannot bring, right, integrity or transparency to that system. You are always, that is the truth. Generally, they are appointed at the end of their career, and that is where executive controls them. So even if somebody is creating a problem for the government, right, after 2-3 months, 5-6 months, he will be retired, right? A new person will come to. So they have a lot of internal issues, right? A lot of people in the CBI, right, they come from the IPS cadre. They generally don't have any commitment to the work because they are using that position for their influence and power. Fine. Obviously, these are career civil servants. They are paid by the government. So it creates basically a kind of conflict of interest. I'm working for the government and I cannot act against the government. How can I act against the government? Anti-corruption conviction rate is very low. Fine. Average 8 years it takes time for people to be convicted. For who? Yes, obviously. But their induction will be, they generally get inducted at the level of a sub-inspector or inspector. Below that, right, they use the local police force. And this sub-inspector or inspector normally will go to the rank of SP or DSP maximum. Fine. Others who will rise to the level or who will go beyond DIG or who will go beyond SSP or SP in CBI, right, they will come from the IPS cadre. So obviously those people who are inducted directly into CBI, they also have no motivation because they will never become the head of the CBI. We can better use the American model, sheriff model, right? They can be elected, or we can use the British model. That's best, the British model, the constabulary model. You can enter as a constable and you can still retire as a police chief because you can give departmental exams. So in British police system, right, the entry is generally at the level of inspector or sub-inspector for everyone. And then through departmental exams, they go to the highest level. This creates what? Motivation. That's called the British police system, right? Or Bobby system or constabulary model. Bobby system or constabulary model or British police system. So from lowest ranks, you can reach the highest ranks. Fine, but that is more of police reform of both. Fine. CBI, CVC obviously does not have direct powers of investigation. It does preliminary investigation only. So generally, within a month, the CVC completes the preliminary inquiry, and when CVC finds that there is enough evidence to go ahead, then it directs the CBI to go and do investigation. Here also things can be manipulated because while the CVC is giving technically the report or forwarding the permission to the CBI, right? Political influence can be there.
So they can be one umbrella with all this, so that everything can come.
No, but then how will you manage? So Lokpal CBI can be brought under Lokpal, fine. But then again, that is the problem. The nature of crimes. CBI is already under Lokpal to an extent, right, for anti-corruption. But for other things, it cannot be. So with autonomy, fine. Oh, they don't have enough manpower. If prominently they start working with Lokpal, what about the other offenses? So it's not that easy, right? Then maintenance cost, training, human resource, lot of factors are there, right? Lokpal cannot be given full-fledged an entire institution under it. Also, CBI is used mostly by the PMO or by the government in power. So they also have their own functions to perform. Right? So, क्या करना चाहिए? Ombudsman systems, see, regulatory systems should be strengthened. There are various areas, specialized crime areas. Every area can be dealt with one particular organization, right? But ultimately, to tackle a crime, there is need for coordination between them. So, हमें बनाना चाहिए, क्या बनाना चाहिए? Coordinating agency, right? For example, अभी हमने बोला minister civil servant relation. Whenever any policy decision is to be taken, there is something called committee of secretary and group of secretary. Committee of secretary, what it does? Coordinates interministerial coordination. Group of secretaries, okay, it collects more of data, facts, information. Same way we can create here. Committee of agencies, various agencies are there, right? Right. So, important suggestion here. There is need for inter-agency coordination. Interagency? Obviously, they will be represented as per the. Fine. Interagency coordination. Then, next. Okay. Lokpal should have powers of punishment. And should function as quasi-judicial body. It already functions to an extent, right? But it is using other agencies, right? उसका खुद की कोई agency नहीं. Right. Okay. Also, there is need to establish union state coordination committees, especially in the areas of interstate crimes or corruptions at a bigger magnitude. We can also have Lokpal for various sectors. For example, Lokpal for health. अब corruption तो health में भी होता है. Lokpal for education, and this likewise. Rather than having, so you have a single Lokpal, right? You can have multiple Lokpals, and it can be coordinated under one Lokpal. No, but department will not be independent, no? How will it be independent? It will not investigate against itself. Or at least if it does, it will not be fair.
So, but ad hoc basis पे committee भी मिलती है तमिलनाडु और कर्नाटक में जो
तो स्पेशल टास्क फोर्स बनते हैं ना, जॉइंट एक्शन कमिटीज बनती हैं या जॉइंट एक्शन टास्क फोर्स बनते हैं, तो वो बन सकते हैं. दैट्स व्हाट इज बिग डील अबाउट इट, बट दे विल बी डन फॉर अ पर्पस, नो? वंस इट इज ओवर देन. तो इसलिए तो वी आर सेइंग कि वी नीड टू हैव अ कोऑर्डिनेशन कमिटी. इफ देयर इज एनआईए, देयर कैन बी अ कोऑर्डिनेशन कमिटी आल्सो, नो? तो एनआईए, अब टेररिज्म का एक्ट तो कहीं भी होगा, लेकिन हमने सेंट्रलाइज कर दी बॉडी एनआईए के थ्रू. एनसीटीसी. Then we have CP grams. Okay, right. We are talking mostly about corruption. ऐसे तो बहुत सारे crime है. We cannot talk about every crime. No, what is the use of that? नहीं. They have their mechanisms to resolve within their departments. Why not? Why you are creating so many additional bodies? Lokpal is also like a tribunal. Fine. If you create multiplicity of bodies, then how will you coordinate them? That is the biggest issue. No? That is what we are trying to resolve. But हमारा focus क्या है? Corruption control करना. हमें इससे मतलब नहीं इनका reform से हमें क्या करना है? There can be a number of reforms within them. How does it matter to us? We are more concerned about how we can tackle corruption and how we can take the preventive measures or curative measures. That is our idea. Fine. अगर हम terrorism को देखने फिर तो पता नहीं कितने महीने लग जाएंगे हमें पढ़ने में सिर्फ terrorism. That's not the idea, no? There can be a number of agencies, right? We want to strengthen. So हमें basically क्या करना है? We need to create coordination amongst agencies so that anti or corruption cases can be dealt with. First of all, the nature of corruption has become highly complex today. as we say, collusive corruption, right? So it is impossible to check the collusive corruption. Corruption can be in several forms, right? Recently, that IAS officer in UP, Noida, का जो था वो, right? 100 crores worth of assets उसके यहाँ से मिले अभी ED की रेट में. Fine, and he's not the only one. There are so many like him. Those who became the head of the industrial development areas, all of them have earned crores and crores of money. You give extra 10 feet permission to a real estate builder, right? He will earn crores. He'll give you some crores. See, when you are zoning an area, right? If you just manipulate it a little bit, see, it will create a big difference. Are you getting? You can understand the magnitude of corruption that if you are authorizing a commercial area for market, right? So that development authority head, right, or an IAS or a PCS, whosoever is there, regional development commissioners or regional development authorities, if they are giving one commercial area, if they just manipulate 10 feet, 20 feet, what is it? 10 feet, 20 feet, kitna hota hai? Itna hi hota hai. If they manipulate it, what will happen? 3 shops will be created, extra shops, which would have not been there. Okay, 3 shops are created. What is the per month income in that commercial hub? In lakhs. What is the annual income of all 3? Around crore. What's the problem of that person giving 25 lakhs to the bureaucrat? He just changed it 10 feet. So my shop is just on the road, but if I get 10 feet of space, fine, I can feed 20 customers at a time. Ho gaya? Nahi change. That is how you understand administration. That is how you do corruption. So from the normal citizen's eyes, it is impossible to understand that corruption.
If an IAS broker deal between two owners of the land, is it the streets of the land, so it's of the land. If you broker
जैसे ये इनकी लैंड है, जो भी कमर्शियल ऐसे प्रोजेक्ट्स बनेंगे वो रेवेन्यू लैंड्स होंगी, गवर्नमेंट की लैंड होगी ना, या गवर्नमेंट ने लीज पे लिया होगा लैंड. This is not how the project works. So government acquires the land and leases out, right? Or there is a government land which is given on lease to someone. 99 years की 199 years की लीज पे दे दिया. लीज का लॉजिक ये है कि भाई you cannot be the permanent owner. Fine, but you can be owner in perpetuity. So आप absolute owner नहीं हो, लेकिन आप perpetual owner हो. भाई पेट्रोल पंप बनता है तो किसी की जमीन थोड़ी होती है वो. क्यों कोई जमीन खरीदेगा ऐसे? Fine, उस पे वो एसेट बनाएगा, फिर क्या will make the asset, why will I make a petrol pump? Are you getting? So hotels, hospitals, big industrial projects, right? They are made on lease land. That is why leasing land and land acquisition is such a controversial area. And that is how you earn a lot of money in that. Okay? तो गवर्नमेंट को लैंड लीज पे ले रही है, राइट? जो लीजिंग या जो अथॉरिटी है जो उसको लीज पे ऑथराइज कर रहा है, फाइन, ही फिक्सेस द, लेट्स से, द लीज एट द पर्टिकुलर कॉस्ट. He increases the cost by 2%. 2% for 99 years. Can you imagine how much will that be? Just increasing 2% of the rent, right, will give crores of money to that bureaucrat, or crores of money to government, for example. Reducing it by 2%, crores of money to the, from the one, from the, reducing the cost to the one from whom we are leasing. So these things work that way. They are all on the economies of scale. That is how you earn money, no? It's the economies of scale. So police, local police collects 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 50 rupees, 100 rupees, 20 rupees, 20 rupees, 50 rupees, 100 rupees, right? And per day it collects 30,000 rupees. 3.6 lakhs from one area. Now in a thana, there are, let's say, 4 areas which are dominant markets. That makes 15 lakh per month. 15 lakhs per month. 4 areas हो गए ना, 3.5 लाख एक जगह से आ रहा है. So you can imagine the scale. That is what corruption. So we have to understand that corruption starts from where? There is a source of corruption, right? There is a termination of corruption. But when we are talking about collusive corruption, there is no source, there is no end.
how do you pinpoint corruption
That is the problem we are debating. We cannot pinpoint. Secondary RC has no solution for that. Nobody has solution for that. Fine. तभी तो डिबेट है. ये पता हो तो फिर कैसे प्रॉब्लम ही क्या होती है बताओ. नहीं, कैसे पिन पॉइंट करेंगे? हम क्लासिफिकेशन करेंगे ब्यूरोक्रेट्स का, राइट? हम सिविल सोसाइटी एनजीओस को या एनजीओस को कैटेगराइज करेंगे, मॉनिटरिंग करेंगे. फाइन. सिटीजन्स का पार्टिसिपेशन, प्राइवेट करप्शन को हम इन्वॉल्व करेंगे. Bribe giver को भी हम punish करेंगे, bribe taker को भी. That is how we can do. What else we can do? Right? Corruption is not something which is visible. It is obvious but not visible. Right? It's okay, right?
Last would be also a profile of various sectors.
इतना तुम लोग बोल रहे हो, पॉइंट्स भूल गया मैं. तब बोलते रहोगे तो फिर तो यही डिस्कशन ही होता रहेगा. क्या लिखा था? Correct, for various sectors, right? Okay, this would enhance specialized accountability, and finally, okay, it could be coordinated under a super Lokpal type body. There is need to fast track. It is part of the Prevention of Corruption Act, right? There is need to fast track the anti-corruption cases and maximize the conviction rate. Okay. New offenses should be recognized. For example, we have already written that. Obstruction of justice. Comma. Deferred bribe. Deferred bribe, comma. Difference between gifts, bribes, and what? Gifts हो गया, bribes हो गया, और क्या होता है? Gifts, bribes, and benefits. But you might take someone's help. Now, will it be classified as bribe? Will it be classified as corruption? You go somewhere, you know someone, right? While working with a particular private sector, for example, right? You go somewhere, you seek their help. Will that be considered as this? No, it should be. तुमने किसी होटल बुक करा लिया, personal benefit, किसी का vehicle ले लिया. If CBI, that was the issue, no? The CBI chief was Ranjit Singh or Sinha. What was Ranjit Sinha? Right? He met one of the persons against whom the CBI was carrying out investigation. And he said it was merely a personal visit. How can that be a personal visit? So the entry diary, which is maintained at the gate, right? In that it was found. So how can that be accepted? In the same way, you might say, okay, fine, my friend, my wife's friend, or my wife is friend with that person's wife, right? And in that they shared. They helped each other in this. So gift kya hai? Bribe kya hai? Benefit kya hai? That's very important. Okay? Categorize it. Okay. Comma. Okay. Also, okay. Also, under RTI, denying information could be treated as an act of corruption. Right, comma. Making a distinction between bribe and corruption itself. Distinction between bribe and corruption itself. Okay. Corruption relates to the greater abuse of authority. Greater abuse of authority. And not is just equal to bribe. Okay. Other acts like veiled threats, veiled threats, hidden threats, right? Veiled threats, comma, misuse of position to obstruct investigation, use of lobbying, etc. could be brought under the definition of corruption. Fine. If it is brought under the definition of corruption, it will be easy. Why? So that the Anti-Corruption Act is, or it becomes eligible for that crime. Fine. Then, okay. Next, right. Okay. Agencies like Lokpal that deal with the corruption at high places, must be provided mechanisms of security. Obviously, people who are members of the Lokpal, right? They must be treated, they must be provided, right? Extensive security because they are dealing with high-profile cases. Fine, comma. The witnesses in corruption cases must be immediately brought into witness protection program or witness identity protection program. In the bracket you can write as in US. So that fair investigation can be conducted. इसमें reference क्या है in the bracket? Fair investigation can be conducted. In the bracket you can write the reference is Vyapam case. See, there were 29, 30 or some witnesses, right? Majority of them are dead. The Madhya Pradesh scam, right? MPPSC recruitment scam, right? MBBS examination scam. So see, majority of the witnesses are killed or they died in some mysterious circumstances. So how it can happen? How anti-corruption agencies will work? Fine. Then we must look at. We must also improve justice delivery systems. Especially transparency in judiciary. If administration is corrupt, transparency in judiciary, right? So that, okay, undue judicial protection is not available to civil servants. Undue judicial protection is not available to civil servants. Right? So we need judicial accountability, fair justice delivery system, only then it will happen. Many times you will see the bureaucrats, right? They get bail very easily. Whereas normal person, just for the sake of 10,000, 5,000 rupees, does not get the bail. तो ये जो मैकेनिज्म है कि बेल बॉन्ड दो, श्योरिटी दो, राइट, यही खत्म कर देना चाहिए. अगेन ये तो ब्रिटिश मैकेनिज्म है, राइट? क्या दिक्कत होगी बताओ? If the Amir corrupt person is moving around, then there is no दिक्कत है, just by giving some money. जिस करप्शन से उसने पैसा कमाया, उसी से उसने बेल बॉन्ड भर दिया. नहीं, ऐसा नहीं, it can be waived off. It's up to the judge. How can you say that? But you see, in minor offences, right? That is why there are a lot of under trials. The jail is filled with prisoners. Law Commission says कि bail जो है rule होना चाहिए, exception नहीं होना चाहिए. Judiciary खुद बोलता है, but follow नहीं करता.
Unlock your ethical edge with ProdEgyIAS. Join our Ethics Foundation program under the expert guidance of Ashutosh Pandey starting 4th August 2025. Master concepts, build perspectives and excel in your UPSC journey. Enroll now at ProdEgyIAS where success begins.